The following is an interview I had with Kiffy Greaves, author of the book If Shame Came in Flavors, at the Debtor's Door. Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the program where we interview Caribbean authors about themselves and their literary works. Today we have with us the kick-ass Kiffy Greaves.
Hi, the name of the book is If Shame Came in Flavors.
Okay, If Shame Came in Flavors. Between you and I know because I see the cover, but I'm just remembering that, and this is probably a bit of a spoiler, the fruits that are associated with the different flavors, but I think that was probably intentional as well. So even though we might forget certain things, we don't forget the fruits. So spoiler, guys, there are
Yes.
Caribbean fruits being mentioned in the book. So yes, so welcome, Kiffy. Welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Keith, just for the persons listening, which country do you hail from?
I hail from Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, great. I know this is probably deviating a bit, but what I usually ask persons, different authors from different countries, I ask them that if there was something about their country that persons were coming to for the first time would had to experience, what would you recommend that they try, whether it's a place that they visit or food that they would try? What would you recommend?
A roti, a good pot of pilau, okra, and pigtail.
Okay. All right. Recommended by Kiffy, guys. So when you come to Trinidad, ask for your roti, ask for your pilau. All right. Now moving along with the interview. Now, Kiffy, the book. I don't want to get too much into the. Let me just say I don't want to get too much into the book. I don't want to give too much as spoilers because we still want persons to go out to read and to buy the book. Now, in your own words, can you just give us like a brief overview as to what the book is about?
So If Shame Came in Flavors is the true story of me leaving my comfort zone, which was permanent employment, to go to school full-time at the University of the West Indies. And I talk about the cultural shame and humiliation I felt when my loan that I had with the bank became in arrears, and the bank published my name in the newspaper, the local newspaper, all three local newspapers, for a period of 4 months. So I talk about what that experience was like, feeling embarrassed, feeling humiliated. I talk about, dealing with infidelity in a relationship, having, losing friends, getting new ones. So it's really a full 360 of life going from very comfortable to very cactusy.
Whoa, I like that term, cactusy. Yeah, I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Yes.
Yeah, and I like that. I have to write that down. Are you a full-time author, or is this something that you did on the side?
When I did this book, I did it when I was really between jobs.
Okay.
And just to keep the honesty going, I had gotten arrested, had to leave my job, and thought that I would not get employment anymore. So I said, well, okay, now I have to mind myself. And so I said, all right, let me write about what happened when I was in UE and see if I write a book. So it became an experiment. It became, let's see what's happening. So I didn't initially start out to say that I'm an author and I do that alone. Even now, I still do have an 8-to-4 job, as they say. But I wrote this book more than a decade ago, but in the past couple of years, really got very busy with getting it published.
Okay. Was the intent to actually do a book, or was the intent more like you were writing to vent or to alleviate your frustrations?
It really became a situation where I was at a low place in my life and I wanted something to inspire me, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find a book with somebody who was in debt and lived to tell about it or anything. I searched so many categories and that sort of thing. And I just felt like, you know what? I want if somebody is where I am now someday to be able to read this book and just get, as Obama says, the audacity of hope or the nerve of courage,
Yeah.
Even when I left my comfort zone, me leaving my comfort zone had a lot to do with a book that I read. And at that time, it was T.D. Jakes' Reposition Yourself.
Yes.
And that book really motivated me to do more. And so, I saw an early value of the power of the written word and the power of a true story that reflects honesty. But what I found was I could not find anything from the Caribbean.
Okay. I like that. First off, the thing is, when it is that we find ourselves in situations, the initial reaction is that we try to look for support from someone or something. And the fact is that you did a search, you didn't find anything, and here you are.
Yeah.
There is a solution that is out there now. So there's going to be someone who would have been experiencing some of the things that you would have identified in the book. And for the record, there are a lot of things that you described that you would have experienced in the book. So when persons read this book, you would have realized, here's what I mean. I'm not the only person experiencing this. There's someone
Yeah.
else who would have experienced this from the Caribbean,
Yes.
and they found a solution. And I like that because
Yeah.
one hand, I mean, from a business perspective, it's profitable. You find a solution to a problem. But I think
Yes.
it's also it's human of you because persons are able to see, here's what I mean. There's someone who experienced this. There's a solution out there, and it's helping me and my journey as a human
Yes.
to navigate problems that I am experiencing. And we really appreciate you undergoing this project. I mean, for
Yes.
all the things that you went through, it really wasn't pleasant, but I mean, it's really great that someone could learn and maybe this is the wrong word, but profit or can grow from your experiences as well.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, keep
Yes.
yeah.
I've accepted that I was a vessel to for others, and I'm okay with that.
Okay. I mean, Kippy, let's talk about the book a little because I mean, another one of the things that stand out about the book is that you don't pull punches, Kippy. You tell it as it is, and there's a lot that go on in there. I don't want to spoil too much about it, persons by the book, but I mean, you talk about like experiences in primary school. You talk about the experiences in UE. You speak about experiences in heartbreak, experiences in tertiary level education. I mean, when it is that you were getting the book published, did anyone say, here's what, hold back, don't be as visceral as this, just hold back, use a little bit of flowery language, not persons use their imagination. Was your intent to be this raw, intentional?
Yeah, I just really wanted to be honest. I didn't want to. The thing is, every single thing in that book is completely true. It
Mm-hmm.
happened. What may be a bit different is that not some stories, it's not all of it is there, but
Okay.
every piece of it happened. Like you heard me say earlier, I had gotten arrested. That's nowhere in that book. So I've really had some very deep experiences and at a young age. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just wanted people to read and just know that this is the truth. But what I did not expect was some of most of the responses were so deep. I read about a lot of the messages, I've kept them. People have spoken to me about so many things. People have spoken about being in an unhappy marriage. People have spoken about wanting to go back to school and afraid. People have spoken about their being in debt too. People
Mm-hmm.
have spoken about I'm in love with somebody and I can't tell my family. People have the book hits nerves in ways that I really didn't even think. But the one word that people use two words to me that it was raw or
Mm-hmm.
honest. Because
Yeah.
I talk about things that I talk about things that a person is afraid to talk to their own soul about, their
Yeah.
own soul. So here you are reading something and realizing, and people are like, wait, this is okay. This happened to her too. You know what I mean? And that is the part. You see, when you make something relatable, somebody said to me, after reading your book, we've all been a Kiffy. It is which Kiffy we are at right now in our lives.
Okay, okay. In terms of the rawness of the book, you call names. I mean, in some instances, you don't call out names directly, but in other instances, you call names. Are names in the book? Are they the real names of persons in the book?
Yes, well, and with regard to the relationships, I did not use the real names, but in terms of everyone else, in terms of a friend, in terms of a relative or whomever, those names are very much real. Because another thing is, even some of those persons who are mentioned, I have had some of them come to me and ask me, so, you know, was I around you and unaware that you were in so much pain? And I was like, yes, you will. So
Mm.
I have people in that book who were right there when I was going through it and they did not realize. And something that I did that was different is that at the back of the book, every name that is there, I went through the trouble and the cost to really say thank you to people that had helped me during the course of my life, during the course of that time. So some people saw their names at the back of the book, and that did something for them as well. Because when you read a book, they always tell you, and thank my husband, and thank my mother, my cat, my dog, and everyone else. And I felt as if everyone has a name, and I made sure to capture it. I really went the extra mile so that people really realize that I wrote this book for them, for us. At the back of the book, there's another part of it where, my friends, I had children's names. And a lot of the children, when their parents showed them that, Auntie Kiffy wrote this book and here's your name. And I did that for a reason because years from now, I want them to know that they can write their own book and that they grew up to be a part of something huge, something different. So it's not just my son name in the book, but my friends and their children.
Man, that is outstanding. That is outstanding. Uh,
Thank you.
in terms of like the idea for naming the chapters of the book after local fruits, like for example, there's tanko bean. I mean, there's tamarind. I mean, where the idea for that come from?
So I wanted this book, as I said, to be something really Caribbean. So I
Hmm.
thought of what could I do so that no matter which Caribbean island you were from, you could relate. And as you have seen, there are things in the book I talk about that most Caribbean people are familiar with. But
Hmm.
I thought, you know what? Let me do the chapters, let me name the chapters after a local fruit. But let me try to describe if I felt what the feeling of shame in that chapter tasted like, what fruit would it be? So I not just have each chapter with a name of a fruit, but underneath it there's a line to explain the texture of the shame. Because
Hmm.
you mentioned tonka beans. Tonka bean is the nastiest fruit in the world to me. It just tastes bitter and awful. And
I
so
like tanko
so
bean.
and
I like
so
tanko bean. I like tanko bean, but
and you know what? I didn't like it because as a child, my grandmother in Moruga used to give us this. And I was like, what is this nasty tasting thing? So the chapter where I go through the most shame and
Mhm.
it hurts the most, that's the name of Tonka Bean. I love pineapple. So the pineapple chapter is one of my more happier chapters. Peach, that is a fruit that is rare, but you get to enjoy it. So, that's one of the last names of chapters in the book. So
Mhm.
that you get an idea of, there's a chapter where I talk about my grandmother. And it's not just a chapter that any Caribbean person can relate to in terms of the fruit, but
Yeah.
in terms of the kind of grandmother that we had
Yeah. Yeah.
growing up. So, there are times when you, as a Caribbean person, because I've had the opportunity to have people from other Caribbean islands read the book, people from St. Vincent, people from Grenada, and some people even from Antigua
Yeah.
and Barbados. And so they were able to relate to the book, if, yeah, this is Caribbean, this is it, this is us.
And I'm not too sure if you can answer this question. I was watching a TV show recently, and if you watch TV, you might have an idea as to the show that I'm talking about. But basically, one of the could say the villains in the show was using this person's shame to get them to do certain things, to compel them to do really bad acts. Having written this book, having experienced the things that you have experienced, what advice would you give to someone who's dealing with shame? What advice could you give to them to overcome it?
The thing is that I wrote about my name being in the paper. And just this week, someone called me. Someone called me because their name was in the paper. And the thing is that this took place for me more than a decade ago. And a
Yeah.
decade later, we still have people dealing with having their name published in the paper.
Hmm.
And so it's real. And it's you really have to understand that at that point, it has already happened and it is going to hurt. But I promise you that this is where you will really see who is in your circle. And I believe that no matter what that cost is, it is important to know who's in your circle. I reached out to someone just about in a couple months ago, who I
Yeah.
saw their name in a story in the paper that they were arrested for fraud. And it wasn't somebody that I knew too personally, but it was someone that I knew from having dealt with them as a client at work.
Yes.
And I reached out to them And and I said, I know what it's like to be published and you don't get to say what has happened. And that really helped that person deal with it because they found an avenue and found somebody who had been there that could tell them a thing or two. And so I've been talking to them because I know how I got. I know the depression that I got into and stuff. And, I said to them, I said, don't worry. You will know between now and the next time we speak who your friends are, and I actually send them a copy of the book so that they could read and, take courage. And, just Holy Thursday, I got a call that somebody was downstairs and it was them. They came to my office and, just brought me some cross buns for Easter. And I was happy to see the person. This is a client and, and we really, had a good embrace. And I know, that everything's not fixed, but I know the person is well on their way to healing, I mean, even now, I still sometimes when I see, because those ads are still running, as I tell you, even now I see that ad and my heart might skip a beat because, those institutions have no idea what they are doing to people's mental health. Mental health is now a topic of discussion. When this happened to me, nobody had no mental health discussion at all, you know? And so I, I talk about in the book somebody whose name was in that same ad with me, drank poison, committed suicide. These institutions don't understand that this is, y'all are giving people anxiety unknown and it can be avoided, but we have a culture where we believe that we have to embarrass someone to get them to act, and we can't continue to exist like that, not after a pandemic, not after so much loss that we've all incurred, you know?
Okay, okay, Kiffy. I mean, we're probably going off topic with this, but I mean, having been in this situation yourself and having seen things on the outside, I mean, you say that, isn't the way that we could continue. Think of any recommendations that are possible option that a person could explore instead of, using this method to deal with persons who.
I think it's important. I think places, institutions need to be held more accountable. And of course, that can only happen with more legislation that is needed so that they understand that there are things that you should not do. For example, if somebody may not be paying what you want them to pay, but they're trying to bring their debt down, that it should be against the law to humiliate them like that. Because really and truly, the person is owing you, they're not happy about it. You don't know how they got there. Sometimes it's not their fault. And some more compassion and empathy is needed. And sadly, it's been my experience that all of them have gotten worse. All of them. You're hearing things. You're hearing, people services get cut when they're saying they just was owing. Places are telling you now, once you think $50 in arrears and more, they're cutting you. People, they've just gotten, they've gotten really cruel, and it's really sad. And I applaud. I really applaud seeing the president, the prime minister of Barbados talking to business manufacturers and stuff and saying hey, you're not going to treat people like that. You're not going to bully them and take up interest rates and stuff. And those are things that have happened here for us, and we don't really have any recourse.
We're just going to take a short break and we're going to come back after this. Greetings, listeners. Welcome back after that break. For those of you who are just tuning in, we are speaking with the kick-ass Kiffy Greaves, author of the book.
If shame came in flavors.
It's really been it's been an interesting talk so far. And again, persons, buy the book. That's all I would say. Buy the book. So we will talk a bit about the contents of the book, but Keith, I want us to take a step back and talk about things that surrounded the book, like about the publishing aspect. In terms of this, is your book self-published or did you go through like a publisher to do so?
I decided to self-publish and actually worked with Dara Publishing out of New York. And that is run by Miss Rhea Rodney. She's actually a Trinidadian doing her thing in New York.
Look.
So she's very hands-on, knows what she's doing. And so she took me from pages to publication. So her it's a one-stop shop. So I would have gotten some assistance with editing and, design layout, and even because the book is, as you know, available in print and e-format. So I would have had to have done the two formats. I would have had to have gotten an ISBN number. That's the barcode that you see at the back of any book. So, she really helped me with everything, bearing in mind that I was in Trinidad and she was, or is, sorry, in the US.
Wow. I mean, but again, it just shows, how things have progressed, how we're able to be in two different countries and you're able to
Yes,
collaborate and communicate and get our project completed.
yes,
As it's a
yes,
as it's a
yes, it
self-published
does.
as it's a self-published book, I mean, that means you'd have had control over most, if not all, aspects of it.
Yes, I had control over it. I mean, there were times when I would have gotten guidance, but it's nothing out of the way. But the actual talent
Mm-hmm.
was done here. And by that I mean, for example, the photo on the book, I actually took my own photo.
You serious?
And
No,
yes, I
because
did.
I was going to ask that, because I'm thinking, okay, if you have cool, continue. Let me not interrupt, girl. You continue. Yes.
So I booked myself into the Hyatt one evening. And
Mm-hmm.
so I angled my cell phone so that I could get the right angle. And so I
Mm-hmm.
took my photo and then I gave it to, I started locally with a graphic design person here. His name is
Mm-hmm.
Alvin. And so Alvin kind of put it together, but the actual photo was done here in Trinidad. The photo at the back of the book, that photo shoot was done here in Trinidad as well. I
Mm-hmm.
would have worked with J. Lou's signature to have that done. And even in terms of styling and hair and everything, that was done in Trinidad. I had my friends, Francisca, I had Kizzy, to name a few, my makeup artists, makeup by Curleen. Even my nails was done by Mintoy, and my hands were done by Kadeen from, so these are people that are all based in Trinidad because I really wanted this. I wanted them to see their talent as well, to pick up this
Um,
book and take pride in knowing that they were involved in even the behind the scenes. Even the photography was done here by I Am Swade, even Michaela Garcia from Fancy Fittings. So I
mm,
really wanted a full complement of, Caribbeanness. The very first initial edits of the book was done by a Bajan, actually. Her name is Suzanne Durant. So
mhm.
that was important to me. And, something that was just as important was, when I spoke about Carnival, I didn't just talk about the artists. I spoke about the things that make up the Carnival, the DJs, the hosts, the food, so that you really, even if you're from Europe or Madrid and you're reading about this book from the shores of the Caribbean, you got a full essence of what it entails.
Yes, yes. Oh, well, I mean, Kippy, if that was the intent, I would just have to say objective achieved. I mean,
Thank you.
in terms of the content, in terms of it coming together, I mean, if you're from Trinidad and you see the book and you read the contents and you see all the things that went together to have it put together, you can't help but feel, some pride. It's like our stuff, we're out there. So yeah, I really like that. I really like that. I mean, one of the things that you identified about the book in particular is that you were going through these really tough times and you couldn't find something, at least by Caribbean waters. And here it is, you went to that gap. So there is a resource that is available now. How would you feel, for example, let's just say there are organizations that help persons and deal with things. How would you feel if this your book were to be used as a form of therapy to help persons overcome situations?
In the grand scheme of things, that's part of my end goal. I do want to do podcasts. I would like to do podcasts where people can, I talk about experiences of shame, not
Hmm.
just in the book, but in general, and allow people to send their comments to be heard. Because the thing with my book is it knows no borders or boundaries. Debt is debt, whether you are in Istanbul, whether you're in China, whether you are in Guam. It's debt is debt. And so I would really love that people could read this. I silently wish that somebody like Nia Long would be able to get a copy of my book right now because when I saw what happened to her, I thought of myself.
Okay.
And, it might be popular, well known, well acclaimed Nia Long, but the pain that she's experienced in the past couple of months with such public infidelity is a pain that I myself experienced too. And then, we know of her Trini roots, so I have a soft spot for her. Like, if I could think of somebody I know right now that I wish could get their hands on that book, or even if I knew or had the means to send her a copy, I would.
That's really noble. That's really
Yeah.
noble, Kiffy. Uh, what advice would you give to someone who would want to follow in your footsteps? For example, they're going through trauma, they're trying to find a solution, and they see, here's what, I mean, how Kiffy dealt with it. Sure, it was pressure, but she just decided to put together a book as well to help other persons dealing with this. What advice would you give to someone who would want to follow in your footsteps in this regard?
It's important to tell your story. Your story will hit somebody else in a different way. Probably there's a part of your story that is not mine, but it's somebody else's. And that's what life is about, really. We're all here we all don't have the same prints on our hands. Everybody has their unique fingerprint, and you are responsible for putting that print out there into the world. At least the thing is that in my time, I went to writers' conferences. I traveled because I was not quite sure how to get a book published. So I was, searching, trying to figure out what to do. Do I go traditional? Do I self-publish? But now at least I see myself as somebody that you can even get advice on from that. How to do it. Actually, I had a meeting last month with, a very influential person from a hotel. You
Yes.
know, he wants to put out his book, but he just did not know how. So I was able to guide him and let him know this is a publisher you can work with, or these are the things that you have to be mindful of. This is what the kind of cost is. And sometimes that's all that we need, because we tend to figure, you know what, this is too hard, let me not bother, And what I discovered was some things are just were very easy to do um overseas. I was able to do a lot overseas, and I'm very grateful for that. So that helped to push me.
I mean, are you disappointed by that, that you had to go and seek services abroad and as opposed to locally? Is that something that you would like to change going forward?
I would like to change. I would like to change us not thinking or seeing. We don't put enough emphasis. Sorry, we don't put enough emphasis into nurturing the talent that is here from early. And I think if I had to run the school system, I would have a meeting by Form 2, Form 3 with parents and let them know as the teacher, as the principal of a school, I've seen that this is what this child is leaning more towards this art and so on. So, because that's what they do in the US. They
Mm,
see the child's talent and they nurture it from early,
mm,
right? Somebody gets drafted to the NBA at 19, when sometimes in Trinidad, we now asking our 18-year-old, so what do you think you want to do? When they should have had some idea by age 6, by age 7, and start to work towards it. And so I went outside because I just wasn't feeling as if I could find the answers here.
mhm,
And it was quite an experience, a good one. I met people. I went to Writers Digest conference. That is the coveted conference for authors. And I paid my money and I went.
mhm.
And when I was there, the keynote speaker was Min Jin Lee, acclaimed author. And she spoke about the book that inspired her to become a writer. Do you know what she said that book was?
What
A
did she
House
say?
for Mr. Biswas by V.S. Naipaul.
You
And
lie.
I will, and imagine me, I was the only person in the hundreds of people that attended that
You.
year in 2019. I
Mhm,
was the only person there from Trinidad. And I got up and I started clapping just like that. And she
mhm.
looked at me and she said, "You have to be from Trinidad." And I said, "Yes." And, I got to meet her after she signed my book and stuff.
Mm,
And, I also went to pitch events. I paid my money to go to conferences to pitch. Somebody's pitched their music to see if they get a record deal. I went
mhm,
and I pitched at writing seminars to see if I could get a book deal. And, I remember meeting one person, and when I pitched the book to her, she stood up clapping. She was like, wow, I've never heard of this kind of thing before. And she said to me that though it mightn't be a book that her publisher, the company she works for, goes with, she really saw the potential in the book. And so when the book was published last year, August, I reached out to her and I actually gifted her a copy, and I ordered a copy and sent it to her. And she was really proud to know that this is somebody that she spoke to and that she inspired, that really did her thing, you know. And so if I can help with that, because you find that sometimes you leave home and you go outside and people pay more attention to you outside than here, and that is something that we really have to do better with. Well, the powers that be, they have to do better.
I mean, if we talk about pitching the idea of your book. I mean, if it is that we want to get copies of your book, where can we get copies of your book, Kiffy?
So the book is available on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very blessed and fortunate that Barnes and Noble picked up the book
Ah.
on without me doing anything. So you can purchase it on Barnes and Noble website as well.
Ah.
And even if you're in the US or wherever, you can purchase it or go to a store, order it, and do an in-store pickup at Barnes and Noble. For persons in Trinidad, it's at the paper-based bookshop at Normandy Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I am really actively trying to see how I can get the book in bookstores in Caribbean islands. So I'm still working on that. But for now, for most persons, especially who, prefer an ebook, it's available on Amazon and there's Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, that's why I got a copy of the book, and for me it was really
Yeah.
convenient because I have the
Yes.
application on my phone, so I can read it while I'm on the go,
Yes.
and I can
Yes.
leave a review because I understand reviews
Yes.
help as
Are
well.
important. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, they do. They do.
yeah, they don't even have to be lengthy or anything. They could be something as simple as
They
great.
just have to be honest. They just have
Yeah.
to be honest.
Well, Kiffy, we're on our way to wrapping up, but
Sure.
before we wrap up, what's next for Kiffy Greaves?
So I would like to do speaking engagements locally, internationally, globally. I also have to start working on the second book because I have a son, but he's not mentioned in that book because he was not in my life then. He didn't come into being. And
Okay.
even the journey of him getting here was another version of, the events of shame, and you're pregnant, you're supposed to get married and stop living in sin and those things. So I'm
Sorry to cut you across there. Should we expect like another book as well? I mean, I don't know. The way
Yes, yes,
there's more.
another book.
There's
Yes,
more.
another book is coming. Another book is coming. And
Mhm.
persons ask me when the next book is. So yes, another book is coming. So, I'm starting that, but I'm now focusing a little more on promotion because quite honestly, I have not done promotion really. It has been that. So far, I've sold about 250 copies of the book, and this is really people telling people,
Mhm.
probably from a podcast interview or so. It's just really organically happening. So I haven't even had a book launch,
Mhm.
you know so those are things that so I instead of some people launch the book and then see what happens, I really just put the book out there and took it from there. So I want to get the because I plan to have the If Shame Came in Flavors podcast,
Mhm. Mhm.
where the podcast will be named after a fruit or after a flavor juice. Different seasons will be different flavors to
Yes.
really let people have an outlet, a no judgment outlet about their shame or the things that, are a bit difficult for them.
Okay, if you will, we have plenty to look forward to. Books,
Yes,
podcasts,
yes,
speaking engagements. I mean, if it is
yes.
a, I really hope that you have some that you're accessible, whether it's a Facebook page, whether it's a YouTube channel or some kind of website. So when it is that we want to know, when it is that you're coming up with these things, we're able to be kept abreast of it.
Yes, well, for now, my profile on Instagram is fairly open. It's I am Kiffy Greaves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the platform that, I really put most of my energy and time into. But
Yeah.
yes, in the coming months, I will have my YouTube channel so that people could, go and, listen to the interviews out there, Women Fancy, even with the podcast and stuff. So yes, and this is what I'm presently, working towards now as well.
And well, good work, and we look forward to hearing more about it. So, Kiffy,
Yes, thank you.
this brings us to the end of our program. Thank you very much for your time. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
interviewing you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this interview as well. So thank you, and all the best to you in your endeavors as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Kiffy. You take care.
You're welcome. You too.
You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.